Well, I started a little early tonight. Want to get going. A few things up here in North Georgia. We have bears. A big bear. He must be 400 pounds, a male. And the other night at 10 o'clock, he was out front munching on birdseed in the flower pot. And this guy is big. He was not on all fours, he was sitting on his fat ass eating seeds. Now, interesting observation is he comes from the right side of our house because I can tell when something's out there because the security light goes on. But this thing is big. So he likes birdseed because he demolished one of the bird feeders. I had to get a new one, so I have to take it in at night. Also, he demolished the hummingbird feeder. I had to get a new one. I actually had two of them, so I have one. I got to bring that in. He demolishes trash cans. Got rid of the trash cans. So I don't want to mess with this bear when I go out to take the bird seed in. I make sure that he is not out there. Usually it's like 3, 4 in the morning when he comes there, but based on my observations, he does come at different times, like 10 o'clock at night sometimes. So observation is key thing I want to talk about tonight. I have a degree in biology chemistry, master's in science, and a doctorate. A doctorate plus $2 to get you a cup of coffee. I thought that was funny. I'd say it again. So with a doctorate, I was taught how to make observations, and that's what I want to talk about tonight. I look at different YouTube videos to see what these other trainers are saying, and they all say about hydration and building the carbs up right before the race, all that kind of stuff. But the assumption that they make is that they're talking to the same person. Everybody out there that's listening and have listened to the videos, you're different. You have a different physiology. You have to pay attention to your physiology in order to get better, in order to train. For instance, when I'm cycling and it's hot out, you just go like that, and you can see if there's a lot of salt in your perspiration. So when you're running, you want to check that out. Is there a lot of salt? Are you losing the salt? When do you lose that salt? Is it a 5-mile run, a 10-mile run, 15-mile run? You want to make an observation on your salt level. If you cannot make these observations, there's nothing you're going to be able to do in order to correct it because you won't know what is the problem. Maybe there isn't a problem. Maybe you're okay on your salt level. Drinking water is fine. For some people like myself, I have to drink electrolytes. I got to replenish the salt because I sweat like a banshee. And what that basically means is, for me, a lot of salt is coming through my perspiration, and I got to replenish the salt. So that's one thing that you have to make for observation. Now, for other people with diabetes, which I have diabetes, you have to check that. What is your blood count, your A1C? What is that? And then you can check your diabetes, your blood sugar. And I do that from time to time. But when you are racing or you're training, you want to check your sugar. Even if you don't have diabetes, maybe at the beginning of your training, your sugar level is fine, like say 104, something like that. What happens if you start to get a little jittery? You want to know what that is. For me, it's my blood sugar going down, and that doesn't happen a lot. Usually my blood sugar goes up. When my blood sugar goes up, I get tired. I can tell. If I eat food 5 minutes after it, especially have some sugar in it, I get tired. I know exactly. My blood sugar spikes. That's something you need to take a look at. And it's not addressed on some of these YouTube videos about diabetes, about sweating, how much salt you're actually losing while you're running. So with that being said, you have to make observations. You have to be able to understand what's happening in the physiology of your body. The next thing, okay, as far as running, you want to double check if you need any supplements. Are you low on potassium? Are you low on, excuse me, B12? In order to do that, you have to go to doctors and get a blood workup. That will tell you if you're low or high on any particular vitamin or macro micronutrients. So that's something that you have to check. The other thing is, besides your electrolytes, is your digestive system. For me, and I talked about this before, I like to use nutrients, say for fuel, that are liquid form. I love maple syrup. I use maple syrup, it's great. Other people, Cliff bars, this type of bar, I can't digest a Cliff bar fast enough to get enough of the energy out of it in my system because I have diabetes and I also have a small stomach from gastric bypass. So you have to pay attention to your physiology, how well you're digesting. When you eat these different types of bars, are you getting nausea? Are you getting stomach pain? You have to make observations. So that's critical. It's not just running and see how fast you can go. You have to pay attention to your body. Are you getting cramps in your feet? Are you getting cramps in your calf muscles? Did you take enough electrolytes with potassium in it? You have to make an observation. And what do you do after that observation? After that, you want to test and do something different to see if what you're doing eliminates that particular problem. For instance, if you're sweating and there's an extreme amount of salt coming out, you want to make sure you switch to a different type of electrolyte. You want to test that, drink it before, drink it during your run, and then see just by testing, tasting the perspiration, if it's not that salty, then you have an electrolyte that's supplementing the salt in your system and you're not spewing that salt out as much. So those are the things that you want to test. Another thing, particularly for me, is cramping in the muscles. Sometimes when I'm riding, I get in a truck and I know I didn't take enough electrolyte or I didn't hydrate enough. I get a cramp in my leg and I can't move. Does that happen to you when you're running? When you sit down and you get up and you get a cramp, that tells you that there's a possibility you weren't drinking enough liquid, period, but liquid also with electrolytes for your system. So those things. So it's first, you want to make observations. Don't just think I'm going to do this, I'm going to eat this, I'm going to chug down, 2 gallons of water in 2 days. You have to test. First, you decide I'm going to take this particular electrolyte and I'm going to see what happens after a 5-mile run. If you don't like what is happening, if you're cramping up and so forth, you change it. But you do the 5 miles and you keep making observations on your run. Before the run, a lot of people say about carbing up. I'm not one to eat a bunch of spaghetti. First of all, my question is, how well do you digest it? If I was going to carb up, I would do it in a liquid or say like a maple syrup, something that's the viscosity is somewhat of a thickness and it's easier to digest in your system. A particular solid is harder to digest. You use more energy to digest that particular product like meat and so forth, or even pasta. But when you take something like, say, the maple syrup or a gel packet, something like that, it breaks down much faster than eating a bunch of pasta before the run. That's my opinion, but it might work for you. So when you're doing that, you have to also say, okay, I'm not getting enough energy from this particular method I'm doing. Maybe I'm not eating enough carbohydrates before I run because I can tell that I'm just lagging. Switch to something else and then test it again. It's always about testing. Testing, measurements, it's all about the testing. There is many companies that have gel packets, they test it. The containers where they have with SLRX, they test people how much they sweat out salt. And then They formulate things that prevent you from losing all that salt or facilitates that you get enough salt in your system because you lose the salt when you're running more so than somebody else. And if you really want to know, uh, like I said, if you're losing a lot of these electrolytes, you need to get a test from a doctor and see what you're missing. I take a lot of supplements: B12, B6, vitamin D. I take vitamin E, and the list goes on. So you have to pay attention to your body. What else? Okay, pay attention when you sit down and you get up and you're dizzy. There's a distinct possibility that you're dehydrated. Happens to me. I know this. I can tell. As soon as that happens, I think, all right, I had one glass of water today. My fault, I know. But sometimes you're eating, and so forth, and you don't want to drink anything. In my situation, I can't drink any at the same time. So you have to make these observations. So I wanted to bring that out. Some of these YouTube guys are just talking about, they're out there about talking about water, talking about carbon up, talking about this. They're not addressing the main test and measurement type thing is everyone has a different physiological makeup than the other person. Who's going to know what the physiological makeup is for you? It's you. That's what it is. So next time I'm going to be on next Thursday. We're going to talk about macro micronutrients. I hope this helped everybody, and I'll see you later.